Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking about reciprocity.com, that you spelled with a 3. I'm a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship, trying to create this sharing economy proofreading platform so that graduate students, as well as many other people, can get the feedback that they desire and become very prolific. So in this particular video, I really wanted to talk about why do you actually choose to get a PhD degree in business strategy. This is part of my thesis help series that I try to provide as much helpful advice as I possibly can to anybody that's interested in going to graduate school, whether it is somebody that's interested in sort of a research master's or a PhD. I do try to go in depth in many of these different videos. So just look at the previous ones. It's called Thesis Help, and you can actually start understanding what it's like to actually get a PhD. What are some of the experiences that you go to? I try to be as raw and helpful as I possibly can. And in this particular video, I really wanted to discuss what is some reasons why you should get a PhD degree in business strategy, or more aimed towards why just from my own experience, and I wanted to be as helpful as possible, why I actually chose to get a PhD in business strategy as opposed to something else. There's a lot of choices that you can choose, right? So my background, my own background, I was an engineer, and I chose to do a business strategy degree. This is really common for people that are in a business school, is that they have some sort of technical background, and then they go and get a strategy degree, for example, or a marketing PhD. And you can actually go a long ways with that. So what I wanted to do in this video is go into why you shouldn't choose a PhD and why you should probably choose a PhD, or why the decisions that, looking back, they're actually probably the better ones and better choices why I actually chose this in the long run. So first of all, why shouldn't you choose to do a PhD? So first thing is money. You shouldn't choose to do a PhD because of money. You will probably be very, very much underpaid. Now, if you're coming from a, really sort of poorer background, I guess, from much more of a developing country, and you have extremely high grades or something like that, then doing a PhD can sometimes increase your total sort of wealth or your income coming in, because your sort of job prospects are much more smaller in those particular economies. But then if you're already somebody from North America, so from the US or from Canada, or somebody from sort of Western Europe, the UK or something like that, I don't know, what else is there? It's France, Germany, all those different economies. Or, if you already have a really decent income anywhere around the world, then, kind of a normal decent income, then actually getting a PhD is going to, you are going to be underpaid for the amount, and I'm going to qualify that, it's going to take you 4 to 5 to 6 years to complete this particular degree. That's going to be a lot of lost wages that you're going to pass up, and that's where you're going to become underpaid. In the long run, even though you're getting paid a substantial amount more than what you could with a sort of normal degree, if you compound all of that a sheer 5 years of not getting paid the same amount as sort of a regular degree, or somebody that's in a regular job, it takes a long, long time to recoup that loss, right? So it's a large investment, it's an expensive investment that takes a long time to recoup that particular cost. I did it myself. I did my own financial calculation because I'm a giant nerd, right? I like this kind of stuff, and I figured out it was going to be when I was 55. Somewhere when I'm in my 50s, I'm actually going to recoup the cost of actually doing a PhD versus just staying my engineering degree and sort of continuing on with the engineering degree. So the second thing that you should be concerned with, or maybe you should not do in terms of a PhD, is for the status. You generally have very low status even when you do get a PhD. When you're a graduate student, so those 5 years, you are extremely low status in terms of how you feel and how sort of society treats you, because you're just kind of in limbo land, right? Nobody understands what a PhD is, right? So if you go do a PhD in business strategy, they're not going to know at all what your is. And then even when you become a professor, most people don't understand exactly what that is. And you're going to have pretty low status for a long time. And even when you're in sort of academia, you still have very low status in terms of your friends, in terms of your academic friends, because there's so many more people that have sort of moved on in the system a long time. So the status issue, don't be sort of persuaded by that. That's probably a bad reason why you should do a PhD. The third really terrible reason why you should do a PhD or get a PhD degree in business strategy is to find the opposite sex. To find somebody, or if you're searching to get married or something like that, you're not going to meet a lot of people during the PhD. It's a really solo endeavor, and you're going to be really focused on what you're doing. So if you don't have that, or if you can't sort of find somebody else in the meantime, then don't do a PhD to find somebody else. I was lucky enough to be married coming into the PhD program, so I had a lot of support, but you do feel isolated, very, very much so, because you're so focused and you're so on by yourself in the long run. So don't really come into that mindset that you're going to meet somebody during the PhD program. In fact, you're probably going to feel you're too busy to actually date. Then most people actually feel very busy and agitated, and then they miss out on a lot. In fact, a lot of people actually miss out on a huge part of the sort of family life because of the PhDs. Some people tend to sort of forfeit that in order to focus on their career in PhD in business strategies. So that's just a heads up if that's what you're trying to do, or if you're trying to sort of advance your family life. It's going to be really stressful. It truly is. A lot of people have a lot of strain on their family when they go and do a PhD in business strategy. It's really, really competitive, really difficult to do. The fourth thing, and I learned this early on, is that you shouldn't do a PhD in business strategy to become a consultant or to go into industry. Virtually nobody will do that if they do a PhD in business strategy in a legitimate school, and you will be persuaded in many, many different ways not to do that, because there is so much, there's a fair bit of demand in academia for your skills, but at the same time, there is what I was thinking about. There is so you're working with a faculty member to develop some papers or ideas and stuff like that. Well, those faculty members are going to persuade you not to go into industry because it's in their interest to not to ensure that you continue on with those particular ideas, because if they're sort of publishing with you, then they are actually going to increase their status by publishing those particular papers. So that's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Don't do a PhD if you're thinking about consulting in business strategy. Not the way to go. So why should you actually do a PhD in business strategy? So this is from my own experience again, and everybody else's might be a little bit different. So for me, it was really about the love of knowledge. I was really, really excited about learning things all the time. It's really fun. You're going to get a lot of mind flips throughout the process. It's going to open up your world, the way that you see the world, in so many directions you would be surprised. The second thing is just sheer curiosity. You're always curious. If you're a really, really, really curious person and you like to work to sort of solve this curiosity, you're always peeking around the corner. There's always more to do. It is a really fascinating, fun journey, and you're always focused on these problems that are virtually impossible to solve, but you are providing a sort of bigger piece to the puzzle. The third thing, that the reason why I personally chose, and why you might actually choose to do a PhD in business strategy, is because it's extremely competitive. So which is fun, right? So people might think that that is a bad thing, but in fact, you're competing with people that are very, very bright, that are at the top of their game, and they're going to continuously push you to new dimensions and new sort of heights. So if you're in academia, and people that have been in academia for a long time, a full professor, they're extremely competitive, they're extremely smart, and it truly is a wonderful thing to actually be part of that particular that particular sort of engine, right? Because they're producing so many competitive, amazing people. So if you're part of that, you're going to get sucked into this whole academic game, or that you're, constantly competing with other people. You're sort of doing the frenemy thing, right? You're constantly competing, and yet you're friends with those particular people. The fifth thing that I think is a really important one, that for me, it was just really a hope for a better life, right? So the reason why I actually went in and got a PhD is to increase my life. I grew up in my family is wonderful, and I had everything provided, but at the same time, we were pretty reasonably, we weren't well off. Let's just say that we weren't well off in any sort of way. So for me, this was a way to increase my standard of living in the long run, even though now that I know that it was probably kind of a bad financial decision. But, at the time, it was for me to increase my standard of living, and as well as, provide sort of stability to my family. And that was a really important thing for this hope for a better life. I think that's a really important thing. Again, it's a really complicated issue when you do a PhD. There's a lot of moving parts. It's really competitive. And there is, a lot of people actually just don't make it through. So I would be hesitant with that particular reason. That's why I'm hesitating, stumbling a little bit in terms of recommending that. But that was my own that was the reason why I chose to do it. And it kind of worked out okay for me and pretty good for me. But a lot of people might not experience that same thing. It was really tough during the whole process. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. If you like these videos, you could check out the other thesis help videos. I put a link in the show notes, some links of ones that you might find interesting. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. If not, looking forward to, or if you do, I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next videos. Bye.